Among the orc clans, none are richer or louder about it than the Bad Moons. Idle and venal, they flaunt their excess, wielding wealth and status like a blunt club to batter less fortunate orcs into line. Their fortune is no mystery in orcdom. The economy runs on teeth, literal orc teeth, harvested from living and dead greenskins alike. Orc teeth never stop growing, and fallen teeth are quickly replaced, ensuring a near endless, if slow, stream of currency. In such a market, the orcs whose teeth grow fastest are richest, and none grow faster than the Bad Moons. They are loud-mouthed, tight-fisted braggarts, spending their teeth only on the finest things, shooters, choppers, and fancy clothes. In camp and in battle, they swagger in the best armor that teeth can buy, festooned with shiny bits of precious metal, glittering gems, and any other trinkets greenskins prize. Some run herds claim it was the Bad Moons who invented the very idea of teeth as currency, once they realized how fast their own grew. Others say it happened the other way around, that after teeth became money, the Bad Moons made their teeth grow quicker to corner the market. Either way, orcs don't bother debating it for long. Cracking teeth out of jaws is far more interesting than talking about them. The Bad Moons make excellent merchants and moneylenders. They can gauge the worth of a thing at a glance, and with a quick look at a prospective buyer, they'll know exactly how much he's willing to pay. Forever hungry for new luxuries, haggling Bad Moons are a fixture of any orc market where goods and services change hands. All that wealth breeds ostentation. Their vehicles blaze with gaudy decoration and gold plating, as does most of their war gear. Gold itself means little to most orcs, too soft for proper weapons or trucks. So other clans happily traded away to Bad Moons in exchange for the only currency that really matters, teeth. The Bad Moons love gold more than any other metal, often flashing a couple of glinting teeth in their avaricious grins. There is a downside to riches in orc society, however. They're easy to lose. A bigger, tougher orc needs only to smash a Bad Moon's teeth out to make a serious dent in his cash flow. This is considered right, proper, and fair, even by the Bad Moons themselves. For in orc culture, the violent creed of might makes right, biggest is best, keeps their ever-growing wealth in check. Bad Moon's mobs are always well-equipped by orc standards, exceptionally so. Their knobs sport flashy back banners and massive customized weapons, strutting at the head of entourages of scurrying grots laden with ammo crates and chests of teeth. Much of this ornamentation exists purely to show every other orc how important the Bad Moons are. Towering, colored totems with grinning orc faces sway above their wagons, teetering statues of gork or mork, soldered together from precious metals and stones, all mashed into one, proclaim value simply by being more of everything, for they're more valuable that way. War bosses and knobs of the Bad Moons clan are renowned aficionados of custom battle wagons. Huge, heavily armed, and impossibly flashy rides built to haul an entire mob along with all its Gretchen, snotlings, squigs, and any other gubbins they can cram aboard. The wealthiest and most well-heeled become flashgits. Though not unique to the Bad Moons, many of them aspire to this pinnacle of orky opulence. Flashgits possess more teeth than sense, and are addicted to loud, flashy, highly customized weapons. They strut with expensive snaz guns and custom shooters, embracing a style over substance mindset that charms the greedy hearts of the Bad Moons. All flashgits are infamous for arrogance, conniving treachery, and a mercenary, un-orky streak. But those hailing from the Bad Moons are held to be the worst of the lot. A mob of Bad Moon knobs on foot bristles with personalized combi weapons and gold-plated def guns, sauntering into battle carrying enough firepower to wipe out entire enemy platoons. They relish blasting a target to scrap just as a rival clan is about to crash in for the melee. Another trait of the clan is their pretension to knowledge. At least, knowledge as orks measure it. The Bad Moons have a reputation for knowing things most greenskins find no practical use for. They also field a great many weird boys who use their wealth to dress with flamboyant magnificence. Unfortunately for them, they are just as likely to be dragged off to the front and used against the enemy like any other weapon. Notoriously avaricious and greedy, the Bad Moons care for nothing but the acquisition of wealth. More teeth, always more teeth. To that end, they will strike highly secret deals with other alien species, unscrupulous human merchants included, to gain access to technology and war gear other orks can't obtain. And when the bargaining's done, they love to spend on food. Many a Bad Moon runs a bit stout around the belt for exactly that reason. In the end, the Bad Moons are the gleam on orkdom's golden tooth, richest of the rich, gaudiest of the gaudy, and forever eager to prove, with clanking banners and thunderous gunfire, that wealth isn't worth much unless everyone else can see it. Once, this clan was very powerful, dominant even, holding sway over orc society for a long stretch of brutal seasons. But when the blood axes began dealing too freely with aliens, humans most of all, the other clans could stomach it no longer. The reckoning came in an inter-orc war so nasty it earned the name the Big Party. Many blood axe boys were wiped out, the clan overthrown, and those who survived scattered into hiding. From those shadows, they still treat with mankind, now out of necessity, for the blood axes have grown dependent on imperial subsidies of teeth. Those payments come from imperial prospectors scouring old battlefields, prying teeth from orc corpses. Other clans are disgusted, not because the blood axes take such teeth, but because they encourage humans to seize what orcs consider their property. Of all greenskins, blood axes meet the Imperium most often. Long, mostly acrimonious acquaintance with humans has taught them skills and habits that make other clans eye them with suspicion. Traits that might mark them as natural leaders among the galaxy's other starfaring peoples instead earn them the label of treacherous scum from most greenskins. Much of that reputation is undeserved. It is true they have had the most contact with the Imperium, sometimes even fighting as mercenaries, and they make extensive use of Imperium war material. Then again, every orc sees the humor in extorting weapons from human worlds, only to turn those guns back on their former owners. Considered untrustworthy for their peculiar ways, blood axes prize cunning and tactics over the brute force beloved by other orcs. They will trade instead of steal, parlay instead of bellow, sneak instead of charge headlong into withering fire, and even retreat rather than die in a heap for nothing. Some take to the stars as freebooters, splitting their time between piracy, raiding, and honest trade. They are every bit as dangerous as their rougher cousins, perhaps even more so, thanks to an innate cunning that lets them think around problems. In battle, they fight with a discipline closer to a professional army than the usual orc tide of unrestrained violence. Moderately organized squads instead of unruly mobs. Enfilading fire, feints, staggered advances, and even the occasional clever ruse. Their war bosses often grasped the big picture better than most, and more than a few of the best planned, best executed WAAAGHs in Imperial history were led by a blood axe. They're mocked for it, though, especially by the Goffs, who sneer at the blood axes as cowardly wretches. The blood axes care little, secure in the knowledge that they alone know how to make war on humans the proper way, and smug in a legacy of leadership and destruction. They take the jeers in stride, sometimes with a good laugh and a walk away, sometimes with a good laugh, a flurry of punches, and a handful of the heckler's teeth rattling in their pockets. Their reputation suffers further because so many young blood axes end up in the Storm Boys, odd formations where a young orc rebels against anarchy by following orders, drilling precisely, and polishing boots. Heckled for such an un-orky behavior, the Storm Boys spend solar hours marching, chanting, saluting, and carrying on in ways that raise howls of laughter until battle is joined. Then, roaring in on pillars of smoke and fire from potent rocket packs, they prove their worth. Most orcs leave the Storm Boys as they age for proper mobs, but some, especially blood axes, acquire a taste for it and rise to command whole formations of black-booted youth. Commandos, those orcs touched by Mork, are another blood axe specialty, emulating that gods bent for cunning, dirty tricks first, open combat second. They prefer to spread panic behind enemy lines before springing a perfectly timed ambush. Blood axes see little value in crafting a cunning plan, only to be gunned down before it can be sprung. And so, their approach is more circumspect than most. Many commandos hailing from the Blood Axe clan, while not as stealthy or trained as the Imperium's, Eldari's, or Tau's special forces, they are brutally effective. It is their use of obfuscation, misdirection, and plain sneakiness that brands them with an unsavory reputation among their own kind. Once lords of orc society, now mistrusted survivors, the Blood Axes are still thinking, trading, scheming, and when the time comes, fighting in their own cunning way. The Deathskulls are plunderers without equal. They loot, borrow, scrounge, scavenge, and steal from their fellow orcs with astonishing skill, and are notoriously bad at giving anything back. Given their ingenuity, most Deathskulls would make capable scientists and excellent engineers, if their fascination with new things lasted longer than the moment it takes to steal them. To a Deathskull, battle is a two-stage affair. The killing is hurried, the better to reach the true prize, the scavenging spree that follows. When the shooting fades, the boys set to work, feverishly stripping the fallen of everything from ammunition to bootlaces. Many will take grisly trophies, scalps, skulls, into the bargain. Only when the loot is dragged back to camp does the inevitable infighting begin, as Deathskulls trade, barter, and auction off their ill-gotten gains. Other orcs who wander into a Deathskull camp in search of stolen goods, some specific bit of kit, perhaps even something taken from them, usually leave with less than what they came with. The Deathskulls have an uncanny knack for cracking a skull with one hand while rifling through pockets with the other. They do not limit their pillaging to enemy corpses. Anything that can be taken probably will be. Wrecked vehicles are a particular delight. The burnt-out hulls of battle tanks, armored transports, even flyers are all fair game. Dragged away from the battlefield, they're either broken down for parts or hauled to a mech who will cheerfully beat some life back into them. It is no rare sight to see an orc armored column roll into war with not only trucks and battle wagons, but looted Lehman Russ tanks, Rhino transports, Predator tanks, and stranger machines besides. Each improved, with bolted-on plates and slathered in barbarous paint and iconography. In longer campaigns, Bane blades, the remains of heavy Craft World Aldari gravity tanks, and even the occasional Titan have been seen sporting the horned skull of the Deathskulls. Only the evil Sunz love fighting vehicles more. The Deathskulls adore modifying them and stealing the great war machines of anyone and everyone whenever possible. More than one foe has watched in horror as one of their own vehicles rumbled back into battle under Deathskull colors, its new owners jeering insults from the turrets. Once something is stolen, it is personalized to make ownership official. Most often that means painting it blue, the color they believe catches their god's eyes and wards off harm. Superstitious to the core, Deathskulls daub themselves in blue war paint, and some will paint themselves head to toe the night before battle. Blue is lucky. Blue draws the favor of Gork and Mork. Blue brings better fortune on the fields of plunder. With such a broad definition of property, it is little wonder the clan produces an inordinate number of ludas. And ludas from other clans are welcomed as brothers in arms. To most orcs, Deathskulls and ludas are near enough the same thing. A pack of thieving gits you'd best keep both eyes on. Ludas are compulsive scavengers with a weakness for large guns. They hunt the biggest and best they can carry, then badger mechs to cobble them into even bigger brutes. So heavy they must be braced across meaty shoulders. These death guns are among the deadliest weapons an orc can wield, roaring with bullets, blasts, and bolts as they tear the enemy to shreds. The Deathskull's knack for valuing junk and divining its use, paired with a natural technical bent, would make them preeminent orc engineers, were it not for their catastrophically short attention spans. Still, their ranks produce a great many mech boys. Among the Deathskulls, mechs hold high status. Canny builders who bodge mountains of scraps and gubbins into tanks, buggies, guns, and all the war gear the clan adores. They are especially known for their wildly dangerous orc combi weapons, stitched together from mismatched armaments piled high in their workshops. The clan also teams with clever, enterprising Gretchen. As battlefield plunderers and petty camp pilferers, they earn a sour reputation by selling dodgy gear. Cast-offs not good enough for the Deathskulls to keep. Superstitious and covetous in the extreme, Deathskulls trust in talismans and charms to twist fate in their favor. They have a habit of producing unexpected weapons, vehicles, and war machines at the perfect or most disastrous moment. The sudden appearance of some especially potent engine can turn the tide of a battle. Whether that's a cunning ruse or merely good fortune brought on by oceans of blue paint depend entirely on who is watching. The Deathskulls will even try to pilfer in the midst of combat, sometimes attempting to steal a particularly interesting weapon or vehicle without destroying it. Deathskull squads are often accompanied by weird boys, whose odd psychic gifts amplify the boys' brutal prowess up close. In the end, the Deathskulls are the cackling hyenas of orkdom, painted blue, pockets bulging, engines roaring, ever ready to claim anything that's not nailed down, and a great many things that are. The evil Sunz clan live for speed. They careen across battlefields at breakneck pace, plowing through enemy ranks before skidding away to cause fresh carnage elsewhere. Among the most daring drivers and pilots in the galaxy, an experienced evil son at the stick or behind the wheel can match any Imperial Navy pilot or Astra Militarum tank ace. Natural pilots to their core, they are irresistibly drawn to anything fast and loud they can cram themselves into. Their attention spans are notoriously short, even for orks, so they favor speed and clamor above all, forever in motion. Even when afoot, they are a red-wrapped riot of bellowing and laughter, fidgeting and brawling, high-strung energy forever seeking an outlet. In combat, they ricochet from target to target, running down infantry, ramming vehicles, smashing through fortifications. They wreak as much havoc as possible in one place, then wheel about and thunder off to another, spreading mechanized mayhem over the battlefield. They are among the more mechanically adept of the Greenskins, especially with their beloved trucks, war buggies, and battle wagons. To evil Sunz, the thundering roar of engines, the whine of a screaming supercharger, clatter of tracks and squeal of tires is the sweetest music. The stench of burning fuel and scorched rubber is finer than any perfume to these adrenaline junkie Xenos. They are forever tinkering, bolting on bigger engines, bolting in bigger guns. Their love of speed draws most into the cult of speed, calling themselves speed freaks. Barnstorming drivers and pilots who crave seat-of-the-pants velocity, where the slightest mistake means certain death, usually quick, violent, and punctuated by a huge fireball. Though an evil Sunz force will include foot mobs, those infantry usually hoard their teeth until they can afford a ride of their own. War bosses of the clan typically have their vehicles painted red from grille to exhaust. The habit harks back to ritual days when orks daubed their mounts in the foe's blood, a practice still kept by some of the older tribes. The evil Sunz never sits still for long, always hunting new victims and settlements for slaughter. Imperial commanders struggle to engage them on any terms but the orcs' own. For the clan's supercharged trucks, battle wagons, and war buggies can outmaneuver the Imperium's heavier armor with ease. They prefer to attack in vehicles, riding to war at maximum velocity on trucks, war bikes, and battle wagons. Their strikes are direct and savage, relying on raw, blistering speed rather than stealth or subtlety. They will often drive straight into the heart of an enemy formation, hoping to collapse it under the shock of unforeseen ferocity. These speed-mad orcs of the evil Sunz usually take the most direct path to their prey, preferably atop something very fast, hollering all the while. And if the first smash doesn't shatter the foe, they'll roar past, build speed, and come back screaming for another pass. In orc society, the traits that matter most are toughness, meanness, and savagery. Rise through the ranks, and all it takes is being big enough, hard enough, and ambitious enough to seize power. In a culture where might makes right, the mightiest are the great orcs of the Goff clan. They are the largest of the greenskin clans, taller, broader, heavier, and unmatched in their savagery. The Goffs are the archetypical orc, the brute conjured in the minds of the Astra Militarum officers, spoken of in the echoing halls of the Departamento Munitorum, and named by parents across the Imperium to frighten unruly children. Their size, ferocity, and ambition make them natural leaders among orcs, and their ranks include some of the most infamous and brutal war bosses in history. Brutes of great renown, most famously the prophet of the great WAAAGH, Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka, have worn the Goffs' black and white livery. Many of the galaxy's most successful smaller war bands are led by these ill-tempered bullies. Goffs are stiff and humorless in the extreme, a trait that grates on their more easygoing greenskin kin. Perhaps their defining hallmark, beyond their sour tempers, is sheer size. Goffs are longer of arm and broader of shoulder than nearly any other orc. With that reach, and with immense strength and endurance, they outswing, outpunch, and outlast all but the toughest foes, Adeptus Astartes among them, making them terrifying brawlers and melee fighters. Cross-grained and casual in their brutality, Goffs are always spoiling for a fight. Absent an enemy, they turn on each other or bait rival clans. In battle, they rely on infantry first and foremost, favoring an up-close personal style. They scorn the misdirection and subterfuge other clans sometimes employ, and, Gork and Mork forbid, sneaking through trees like cowards. In their creed of WAAAGH, the proper way is the full frontal assault. Tear the enemy apart with tooth, claw, and choppa. Thus, the Goffs' calling card is the huge snarling mob, and their armies tend to be larger and more homogeneous than those of other clans. They can manage decent battlefield strategy, but their tactics are devoid of subtlety and begin and end with the time-honored maneuver, screaming straight into the enemy guns. For such work, they favor the ubiquitous slugger, often with a bayonet or vicious melee attachment, and the heaviest, choppiest, wickedest choppers they can heft. They love a good explosion, and typically carry clutches of stick booms for trench lobbing and bunker clearing. Given their bull-headed doctrine and love of close quarters, most Goff forces are slugger boys and ard boys. They may ride in on trucks and dismount for the final charge, but more often they simply march to wherever the fight is. They are supported by the usual cohorts of weird boys, mech boys, runt herds, killicans, and the occasional death dread. Goff knobs often don mega armor, the better to smash straight into the thickest fighting. The Goffs also boast the greatest numbers of knobs and storm boys of any clan. They are the most militaristic of all orks. Every orc lives by war, but the Goffs live only for battle. Their whelps indulge in dangerous rituals of strength, donning bull's head helms crowned with great horns and charging like raging beasts. They slam together with a crack of horn on horn, head-butting until one yields, or until both are bludgeoned beyond rising. Brutally straightforward, the Goffs are the biggest and most ferocious orcs, a ceaseless tide of green violence when they strike. To them, the only measure of a plan's worth is in its execution, namely, the execution of anyone foolish enough to stand before them. They surge across the field in vast, crushing waves of boys and knobs, all following their war boss. Strategy and tactics blur into one simple law. Whatever stands before them must be smashed. Any deviation from the Goff way earns derision, and a clobbering from the first Goff war boss to notice. War paint and tattoos are taboo among Goffs. Instead, they display skull earrings, death's head pendants, metal studs, skull-shaped gorgets at the throat, and great nose rings. To the Goffs, these are the outward marks of the inner orc's toughness, proof writ in iron and bone. Within wider orc culture, the Snakebites clan are branded as backward throwbacks, an accusation that says everything about their ways. They scorn complicated notions like making their own guns or vehicles, and put their faith in what they can trust: a sharpened bit of bone, a heavy stick, a keen-edged chopper. They go to war daubed in mud and crude war paint, the claws and teeth of slain beasts clacking at their throats, poorly cured skins creaking over weathered, beaten frames. Rugged living has made them tough as old boots, thick, leathery hides and practices uncouth even by Orky standards. Among their many curious traditions, one stands out and gives the clan its name: the coming-of-age rite that uses live, venomous creatures. A young snakebite baits an extremely venomous serpent into biting him, then sucks the venom from the wound to prove his toughness. Bite by bite, handling venomous creatures as a matter of course, they build a natural immunity to all but the most potent toxins. They are seldom without a lethal serpent, arachnid, or other small beasts on their person when traveling from world to world. Insurance against a disappointing lack of venomous fauna at their destination. As far as a snakebite is concerned, snakes make the best pets. Obviously, the more aggressive, the better. Their reputation extends beyond venom handling. Snakebites are the finest breeders of grots and squigs among all the clans. Their runt herds raise the fiercest, toughest, most biddable stock, maintaining sprawling, pungent menageries that are a credit to the breeder's art. So great is their prowess that only the snakebites possess the skill and the secret feed to breed the terrible squiggoth. In battle, these massive squiggoths and ferocious grots prove invaluable, for the snakebites favor a fast, savage frontal assault backed by grots armed with crude melee weapons. Surprisingly, such swarming tactics serve them well against more technologically advanced foes. Many an Astra Militarum squad has vanished beneath an avalanche of frenzied orks, snapping, hissing squigs, and frantically slashing grots. Often, the snakebites drive their orkoid beasts ahead, counting on squigs and even squiggoths to overwhelm the enemy so their boys can close. Runt herds toil to keep the beasts and the clan's grots in line on the battlefield. In times of war, grots are thrust into the fray with crude weapons, man the batteries of big guns, and accompany the tribe's weird boys. Ironically, the more sophisticated weapons that fall into snakebite hands usually end up with the grots, left to figure out how they work, while the orks themselves gather into especially large, surly mobs whose lack of shootas is more than compensated by an arsenal of heavy, blunt objects. Snakebites are extremely tough. They rely on innate resilience and the distraction of countless charging orks, squigs, and grots to keep enemy fire from cutting them down as they surge towards the melee. Once they arrive up close, their sheer savagery usually carries the day. They are toughened by their strange initiation rites, bitten by poisonous snakes and sucking out the venom straight away. They grow harder and harder over time. Of all the orc clans, the snakebites remain closest to the wild, uncivilized state of their feral orc ancestors. They use and understand technology as well as any other orcs. Yet their inclination is to shun much that is sophisticated in favor of familiar ways. They are wanderers who rarely settle for long, staying on a planet only long enough to find a fight before moving on again. Imperial scholars speculate that this clan may be the last remnant of the original ancient orc culture before the Greenskins ever met the wider galaxy.